Hey there, and welcome back to the Full Later Life. I'm Martin, and this is a space where we remind ourselves that it's never too late to start living fully, especially when it comes to our health. Now, if you're in your late 40s, your 50s, your 60s, or beyond, and you haven't exactly been best of friends with exercise lately, or ever, then don't worry, you're in good company. Even if your current workout routine is just carrying your groceries from the car to the kitchen. So whether you're looking to feel better, get stronger, or just have more energy for the grandkids or the pub quiz, this is your starting point. So let's dive in, and no burpees are required. Tip 1. Park a bit further and get those steps in. Alright, this one's a really easy one to get us started, and no gym membership is required. Next time you head into the work or grocery store or the mall, instead of trying to grab the closest parking spot like it's the last slice of pizza at a party, why not park a little further out? Just a few extra rows could add a surprising number of steps to your day. It might not seem like much, but these short walks add up, and they are a great low pressure way to ease your body into being more active. And plus, you can avoid that little parking space battle royale you have near the front doors, and that's a win for your heart and your stress levels. Tip 2. Take the stairs and work those quads. So next time you're faced with a choice between the elevator and the stairs, go ahead and give those legs a little challenge and take the stairs. Now, I'm not saying that you should hike all the way up to the penthouse suite at the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which, by the way, stands at a whopping 2,717 feet and over 160 floors. So unless you've packed oxygen, a snack, and maybe a change of clothes, let's leave that climb to the extreme adventurers, shall we? But a few floors? Well, that's totally doable. It's a simple, effective way to get your heart rate up and your muscles working, all during your normal day. So start small and maybe 1 or 2 flights, and you'll be surprised how quickly it starts to feel easier. Tip 3. Consider getting back on a bike. Now, do you remember how much fun you used to have as a kid riding a bike? Yeah, the wind in your hair, legs pumping, probably laughing your head off while trying to ride no hands, or chasing down scary clowns like Pennywise in It? Turns out that bikes are still fun, and they are a brilliant low impact way to ease back into being active. And look, you don't need a top of the line setup to get started. I mean, yes, these days I do have a very nice carbon fiber bike, but the first bike I got back on wasn't fancy at all. It was a beat up old mountain bike that I'd shipped over from England when I moved to California 20 years ago. You know, it kind of just sat in the garage gathering dust for years, but as I was approaching 50, I finally pulled it out again, cleaned it up and got riding again. And that was the real turning point. Yeah, and if you're worried about the hills or distance, maybe consider an e-bike. Many have pedal assist or multiple modes, so you can still get moving and do some work, but with a little help when you need it. Think of it like riding with a tailwind that you can turn on and off. Tip 4. Walk or cycle for local errands. If you're lucky enough to live within walking distance or biking distance of places like the grocery store or the post office or the local cafe, why not leave the car at home now and then? I personally live about 15 minutes walk from a local grocery store, but for years I always drove. It was just a habit, you know, grab the keys, get in the car and go. But now, unless I've got a big load to carry or I'm buying more than I can reasonably balance without looking like a pack mule, I just walk. And it turns a boring errand into a bit of movement and fresh air. And you don't have to fight for a parking spot either. Now, it might seem small, but these short trips add up, and a walk here and a bike ride there, and it's all part of gently building activity back into your daily life without needing to schedule a workout. Tip 5. Get a step counter that you'll actually notice. You know, tracking your steps is a great way to stay motivated, but let's be honest, if you're relying on your phone to count them, the chances are the phone's on the table while you're moving, or it's just in your pocket and you're not really checking it. And that's why I recommend getting a wrist step counter. Now, unlike your phone, it's right there on your arm and it's much harder to ignore, and it's also a lot more accurate for tracking your real activity. Now, when you first get it, don't try to change anything about your lifestyle. Just go about your normal routine for the first week, just to find out what your natural baseline is. And then aim to increase that number by 10 to 20% and stick with that for about a month. Then nudge it up again and keep going like that until you reach a daily step goal that feels active and manageable. Now, I'll admit there was a time when I really got too much into it. And around 10 p.m, I'd check my step count and realize I was short. And then I'll start pacing around the house like I was training for some kind of midnight marathon or something. You know, and it worked, but let's be honest, you don't need to be that obsessive. You know, if you fall short one day, just take a note and adapt the next day. It isn't about perfection, it's about consistent progress that fits into your real life. And remember, once you're hitting somewhere between about 12,000 and 15,000 steps in a day, you're well into the healthy zone anyway. At that point, it will make more sense to mix in other types of activity rather than chasing those ever higher numbers. After all, movement is the goal and not just a step count bragging rights. Tip 6, turn date night into an active adventure. Now, if you've been with a significant other for a while, you've probably got the usual date night routine down, dinner, maybe a movie, and then home. Nothing wrong with that, but what if once in a while you mix it up with something active and fun? Try a country walk down a nearby trail or rent bikes and cruise along the beach path. It's a great way to reconnect, share some laughs, and get your bodies moving without feeling like exercise. And afterwards, you can still treat yourself to a nice meal afterwards, but this time you will have actually earned the appetite. And plus, doing something different in a new area might lead you to stumble across a little local restaurant or a hidden gem that you've never tried before. And that's a win for your health, your relationship, and your taste buds all in one. Tip 7, try something new or rediscover something old. Getting active doesn't have to mean hitting the gym or jogging around the block. In fact, sometimes the best way to start moving more is to try something totally new, or get back into something that you loved years ago that you haven't done in years. And many places offer beginner-friendly intro classes for things like dancing or martial arts or yoga, often with a no long-term commitment. Or maybe there's that old activity you used to enjoy like tennis or swimming or even roller skating if that was your jam, and it's just waiting for a comeback. The key is to find a class or a group where no one cares if you're a bit rusty or you're totally clueless at first. Now obviously don't go joining a cycling club that's prepping for the next year's Tour de France. Look for something relaxed or social and fun, because more often than not, it's the people who make the activity enjoyable. And you may remember that in a previous video I talked about how I stumbled on a local running group that met at a brewery. Not only did it get me moving, but it turned into a community, and that was the whole point. When the experience is fun and the people are welcoming, you will actually want to show up, and that is where the real magic happens. Tip 8, turn on the TV, but make it the right kind of event. Okay, now this one's a little different. Most advice tells you to turn off the TV and do something active, but I'm saying turn it on, but just choose wisely. Now I'm not talking about the usual suspects like football or soccer or baseball, because let's be honest, for most of us watching football, that just means sitting on the couch with wings, chips and a beer. Not exactly a gateway to fitness by any means. And unless you live on some cult leader's compound, you're probably not going to round up 21 other people, a referee and the halftime marching band for a casual Sunday scrimmage. And let's be real, if you do live on that kind of compound, sports might not be high on the approved activities list. Instead, try watching sports you could actually see yourself doing. For that's the real trick. For me, it was professional cycling. I started following the Tour de France and other races a few years ago, and it genuinely inspired me to get my bike out more often. And I've got a friend who's really into tennis. And sure, she's never going to be on centre court at Wimbledon, but she's a regular on the local courts, and that's what counts. When you see people doing something that looks doable and fun, it can light that spark. So tune in, get inspired, and maybe find a sport that makes you want to get up off the couch. After the game is over, of course. Tip 9, try the Couch to 5K program. Now, if you're looking for a clear, structured way to get moving, the Couch to 5K program is a brilliant place to start. Not everyone's going to run a marathon or jog coast to coast across America like Forrest Gump did, but a 5K, that's totally doable for most people, even if you're starting from scratch. And what's great is that many 5K events aren't just for seasoned runners. Loads of them have walking categories, and some even have fun editions like dog walks or stroller pushes. And they're often community events too, with part of the entry fee going into a local charity. So just by showing up, you're doing something good for yourself and someone else. And here's the sneaky part, it can get addictive real fast. You start out walking and you finish your first 5K and you get your medal and suddenly you eye the next one. Walk a few more, you pick up the pace a bit, and before you know it, you're jogging and then maybe even running. One finish line leads to the next start line, and some people who just start out walking a 5K end up doing 10Ks, half marathons, and yep, even the full 26.2. The Couch to 5K program keeps things simple and builds up gradually, so it's a great way to gently ease into a more active life without the pressure of trying to be an elite athlete overnight. Tip 10, know that you can do more than you think you can. Now this last one isn't about what to do, but how to think. And honestly, it might be the most important tip of all. The fact that you're even watching this video tells me that you've hit that moment like I did, where you realize that living well into your middle age and later years isn't going to happen by accident. You have to choose to be active. And maybe you're wondering if it is even possible to turn things around at this stage of life. Well, Let me tell you that you can do far more than you think you can. Now, I never believed I could run a marathon. I was not a sporty kid, far from it. My school sports teacher basically gave up on me, but here I am, 53 years old, and I've run 2 marathons. Los Angeles in 2024 and Rome in 2025. And I've got my sights set on Osaka for 2026. Sorry, Mr. Sports Teacher, but you are wrong about me. Now, of course, if you have a medical condition or chronic injuries, they need to be factored in, and always listen to your body and your doctor. But even so, you still might be amazed at what's still possible. You just have to take that first step, and yes, I'm quoting Ted Lasso here.
And all you fellas need to do is believe it.
It's a sign.
Stick it on the wall if you have to. Start with small, manageable actions and celebrate your milestones, however minor they may seem. Each step, literal or figurative, is part of building a life that is active and fulfilling. And the biggest step towards living a full later life is the first one. And guess what? You've taken that step already. Now, thank you for joining me on this journey of living a full later life. I really hope these tips give you a few ideas or maybe even a little motivation to start moving more and living well, no matter where you're starting from. And if you've got your own story or any tips that have worked for you, then drop them in the comments, because your story and your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today to start their journey of living a full later life. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next video.